Hello, I am the Aristocritic, the number one person who knows everything about all the things ever and will review anything he wants even if no one is listening. And today, I have a very special guest, the only guest I can get on because he will do anything for $1 that I'm not paying him. I'm not paying him $1, but he is the best, the greatest, the best YouTuber of all time that has more subscribers than anyone else. That's right, I'm talking about Quilsniv.
Hi kids, it's Quilsniv. He's not paying me, we're just friends.
He has a more successful channel than me, but this video is going on my channel, even though he is not a draw for any views.
Oh. Okay.
You're not. And today we are talking about
Spider-Man Homecoming, a 2017 film starring Tom Holland, Robert Downey Jr., Michael Keaton, Marissa Tomei, and a bunch of diverse high school kids that nobody really cares about in the long run.
Well, we're gonna get to that because we have some very different opinions about this movie.
He loves it, and I think it's pretty meh.
Well, I guess that's not super different opinions, but it is a difference.
We agree on a few things, but we are split down the middle on a lot. So let's start with what we agree on. Holland.
We should just give an overview. Spider-Man: Homecoming is the story of Peter Parker, your average high school. Is he a middle? No, he's a high schooler.
You think he's in middle school?
He looks really young, and
to be fair, his voice cracks more than he cracks jokes, so I can understand where the discrepancy comes into play.
Yeah. Peter Parker is your average high schooler, but he has a big secret.
He's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and Tony comes up with that term, but I'll get into that later.
But Spider-Man's having a few troubles because no one needs him ever until he finds a ring of people doing bad stuff and he needs to shut them down. But oh no, Tony Stark thinks he shouldn't. What will he do?
Well, I guess he'll save the day like a normal superhero would.
Oh yeah, and Homecoming is a thing in this movie. It's in the title, so I thought I should mention it.
So, all right. So I guess what should we start on? What we agree with?
I'm just gonna say this. This movie is my favorite Marvel movie.
I disagree with that, so I guess we just broke the first rule. We were supposed to agree on things, but...
No, we didn't break the rule because I said in the very beginning that I'm right about everything.
Oh, fuck you.
I am the Aristocritic, and I will use...
Your power that was disbanded in the mid-18th century.
I will use the power I was born into to prove that I am correct, because I can pay to make my opinion correct.
I'm not sure that's how it works, but whatever. I ranked this within the top 10 of the MCU films, maybe the top 5.
Top 1.
No, okay, Mom.
I should clarify, I haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy 2, so maybe that's better.
I feel he also hasn't seen Winter Soldier. So...
I have seen Winter Soldier. I didn't like it that much.
Oh, well, okay.
Look,
we got a contrarian on the show.
I don't like the Captain America films. Hydra is just weird. I don't understand it.
Okay, I'll condense it for you. Nazi, Hail Hydra.
I know, but they somehow managed to remove Nazis from World War II in all their explanations, despite the fact that he punched Hitler in the first movie.
Well, that was an act.
Yeah, but Hitler was mentioned once. But then in Winter Soldier, the Doctor AI guy,
Armin Zola,
he manages to talk about World War II without mentioning the Nazis ever, and he basically plants every bad thing that happened in America on Hydra. It's really weird.
Alright, so I guess I ranked this within the top 5 of the MCU films. It's good tier, not god tier.
It is god tier.
Okay, let me rank it for you. For my top...
It's more god tier than Thor, and Thor is god.
No, everyone agrees that Thor movies are pretty crap.
But he is a god.
Okay, doesn't really make a difference.
Makes it god tier.
Alright, within the Spider-Man movies, I rank it on equal ground with Spider-Man 1, which ranks it about in second place.
No.
You're just a mouseketeer, aren't you? You're just shilling for this movie.
But
You sound like a frickin' shill.
Listen, I am the number one critic of all Marvel movies, except I don't have any videos about them. But trust me, I dislike them. Well, I don't dislike them, but I have a lot of problems with most of the movies. But this is just one of those movies that I don't have a problem with because it solves like every single problem I ever had with every other Marvel movie.
All right. Let's start with what we agree with. Tom Holland as Spider-Man is a really good Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's really great. He puts out a great performance. His character feels very real. He feels like a person that exists in the world. He feels like a kid that could, and I like that his performance of Spider-Man. This is something I didn't like about the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. It's that Spider-Man, Peter Parker himself in those movies is weirdly passive.
Yeah, I thought there's one thing I gotta give the Raimi movies flack for. It's not really nailing down. Tobey Maguire's a good Peter Parker, but doesn't nail him down.
What, babyface Parker?
Okay, so if you read the comics, you remember that Peter was practically a school shooter before before people started retconning him into being like that one teenager. He was very conservative.
Well, that's what I like about this Peter Parker, this new Peter Parker.
That he's not a school shooter?
No, it's because this Peter Parker is a newer interpretation of the character that's more based on what we understand to be a student today. And there's a lot of really relatable stuff in this film, which, especially the homecoming stuff, because I can attest to the fact that every single thing that relates to homecoming in this movie is pretty much dead on.
Well, not Gnome Coming.
What?
Gnome Coming?
You can't make references like that. No one will understand them.
You will, and you're the only one who watches your videos.
Our school did a theme for homecoming called Gnome Coming.
We basically just put gnomes everywhere. It was creepy, and I don't think anyone went.
But I mean, in this movie, they have a theme for homecoming. What was it?
I think it was like the 80s or something. I would have gone to that homecoming.
I think our school actually did have that as a theme one time.
When? I don't remember it.
It sounds like a theme that they would have done.
I think every school has done the 80s theme at least once or twice.
But yeah, for a movie written by a bunch of older people, it's surprisingly true to the nature of what school is these days.
I think it helps that Tom Holland actually went to a school and kind of infiltrated himself amongst other students to get a feel like an actual American high school.
That's interesting. So he like method acted?
Yeah, kind of. He didn't deliver dead rats to his co-actors though, so...
Well, let's not talk about that.
Another plus, Michael Keaton is the Vulture. That guy
really
did.
Good.
If we're gonna agree on anything, is that this was Michael Keaton's movie through and through.
No, this was everyone's movie except Zendaya.
Okay, I just think that Michael Keaton stole the show.
Let's put a pin in Zendaya.
No, let's not. Let's talk about Michael Keaton, because I want to talk about Michael Keaton.
Do you even understand what putting a pin in something means?
Yes. All right, let's talk. You want to talk about Zendaya or what?
No?
I don't.
When I say you put a pin in it, it means we'll come back to it later.
Whatever. All right, Keaton is
so
Vulture.
We'll put a pin in that.
Let's just cut that from the video when we.
No.
Yes.
I want it to be proven that you're an idiot. The real point of my videos is so that later down the line I can use them as evidence to say that I was right. That's what I did with my Griffith video. I even said in the description, the only reason I even made it was so that I can make a follow-up video when it turns out that I'm 100% right, and then I can laugh at everyone's faces.
That seems awfully narcissistic.
Well, yeah. It's aristocratic. I'm really playing into my new character. But, so yeah, Michael Keaton.
He steals the show for me. Like Tom Holland did good, but Keaton did better.
He works not just as like a villain. He works as a dad,
which is kind of weird.
Okay. Spoilers.
He's
Spoilers.
He's Liz.
No, shut up. We have to say spoilers for a really long period of time so that people can figure out to actually click off of this video if they don't want to get spoiled for a movie they probably already saw. But yeah, spoilers. The Vulture is Liz's dad, which, okay,
it's a weird twist from the comics, and I don't really mind it. So
it is. Well, first off, the Vulture in the comics is
a freaking
It's a little bit too
he's
weird.
Not, the Vulture,
it's Mr. Burns.
The Vulture in the comics.
The Vulture is Mr. Burns dressed up as the Grinch.
I always thought the Vulture was kind of those less threatening villains, like he was C-list at best.
Well, it's obvious he was one of the first villains made because he's one of the
corniest.
Well, you can tell what villains were some of the first they made up because they all have animal themes.
Like Dr. Octopus,
Rhino.
Kraven. And
Kraven
really
was
count?
not. No, it has to be the and then an animal.
What about the Shocker? Is Shocker an animal?
The Scorpion, the Vulture, the Rhino,
the Dr. Octopus.
Yes.
That wasn't. Jesus Christ.
But you can see what I'm talking about. The Lizard.
Mysterio.
I like how you're completely ignoring
I know.
what I said.
You're saying that all of Spider-Man's villains are animal-based.
I'm not saying that all of his villains are animal-based.
Early ones. You're saying all the early ones were.
What I'm saying is that probably in the concept stage they were like, well, he's Spider-Man, so his villains should be animal-themed too. So I'm imagining the first villains they came up with were the animal-themed ones.
All right.
Now, I could be completely wrong about this, but that's what I think. But Michael Keaton, what I love about Michael Keaton is that
well, he has a good motivation to become the Vulture.
Yeah, but
he delivers a solid performance throughout, and he's very relatable actually. Blue collar worker as a salvage company, and he has to. He mentions early on in the movie that he had to take out a mortgage to pay for a new truck to clean up New York, only for damage control to sweep in and take it all. So
a common theme that you'll find with me liking this movie is that it relates to me personally. So I mentioned this to you before, but Michael Keaton, that scene where Liz and Peter Parker are in the car with him as he's driving over to their homecoming, that's me and my girlfriend's dad, because he scares me.
Well, I don't think he really scared Peter because he was his girlfriend's dad. I think he scared him because he was a fucking murderer.
Well, it plays into that. Well, that's what I love about it, because Peter seems really stressed out, and Liz is like, oh, I get it. It's because it's my dad, which is, listen, if you think Peter was too stressed out for anyone to not notice, don't worry. That's what it's actually like. So she would not have thought anything was weird at all. That would have just been like, oh, okay then. So
I actually thought the way he deduced Peter's identity was like really smart. Like he took coincidences that no one would have tied together and just somehow came up with the idea that he was Spider-Man.
I wouldn't really call it deduction. It's just that, like,
how is it not deduction? He figures it out himself. He doesn't have anyone tell him. He figures it out.
He has Liz. It's not that he was smart to figure it out. It's just that, like,
all the coincidences fell into place.
It's just that, like, Peter's behavior is something that Liz would naturally comment on because it was a very recent thing to happen. And she wanted to bring it up in conversation, and he wanted, like, I don't remember the exact details of how that scene played out, but it made a lot of sense as to why she mentioned certain things. And then Peter's like, no. And then she is like, oh no, yeah, you did do that, remember? And she brings up more and more details, and it makes more and more sense. But if by the end, listen, it's not deduction if by the end of it, if he didn't figure it out, you would have literally slapped him in the face. Plus, Peter sounds exactly like Spider-Man, so,
Alright.
I want to back up for a second and kind of go over this in sort of a chronological order. Let's start with, the main cast and sort of work our way through it to the more contentious things. I really like Ned.
I thought he was passable. He was okay, but he did get annoying at parts of it. So
I wouldn't say he didn't really see. Here's what I think. I think that yes, he can be annoying, but I didn't find him annoying. I found him annoying to other characters. I didn't really find him annoying. I can understand where he's coming from. He doesn't really understand the responsibility that's involved with being Spider-Man. But
I don't find him to be Jar Jar levels of annoying, but there are times when his voice does grate on me.
I mean I like him. I think he's charismatic. I like how he has a point in this movie.
He does serve a legitimate role besides just being that guy who knows he's Spider-Man. He does do something, which I guess is credit where it's due.
You actually missed a scene that might have made you dislike him more, where
Was I in the bathroom for that one?
yeah, you were in the bathroom. Basically, the idea. I'll go over it in more detail now, but basically, Spider-Man missed the decathlon because he was in a bunker.
I think I came in just as he was waking up. Or something.
You came in during the Washington Monument action scene. So the idea was, Spider-Man was following Vulture in the truck, but he accidentally got caught in the truck because the Vulture closed off the portal thing. So he was stuck in the truck, and he got knocked out, and he ended up being deposited in like
A safe or something.
He got deposited in like a maximum security storage area and was stuck there throughout the decathlon. Like it opened up in the morning and he missed the entire decathlon because of it. But what he found out from the computer system, Karen in his suit, which
I'll talk about Karen later.
I like that addition. Well, you missed the part where they really like characterized that computer, like when he came up with the name for her and when.
Well, no, I was there for that.
No, the scene where like
where he names Karen. Yeah, I was there before he gets.
When they're like when Karen's like giving him dating advice.
Yeah, I was there.
That was really cute, because that's something you do. You kind of look for when you're single and young. You kind of look for anonymous advice.
Yeah.
That was very relatable. Like you don't want to be judged.
I think Karen's more an extension of Peter than anything.
Yeah, but the idea was the Purple Stone that
the Chitauri power source.
Yeah, that Ned took it from the hotel room because Peter didn't show up, and he's like, well, I need to keep it safe. But it turns out that when exposed to radiation, they explode. So Peter was like, oh no, I have to get that away from them. And so they go through like the metal detector and stuff, and that sort of activates it so that it'll go off a little bit later. But it activates in the elevator, and that causes it to like break down.
I think I got there just when that was happening.
So yeah. But there's a scene before that when Spider-Man is trying to get in touch with Ned, and like Spider-Man can't like get him the details of it in time. But overall, I really like Ned. I like that he's a useful character. I like that nothing about him changes. He doesn't become any more competent. It's just that the skills he has happen.
Are already being put into practice. Like he does disable Peter's training wheels protocol, which I mean is kind of impressive given that it's a Stark suit, and I'll get to that in a bit.
But I mean Stark was really underestimating Peter. So
I think that was a point of the movie, that he was underestimating him, so I'll give them credit that Peter knows how to...
Plus it was kind of implied that Tony like made the suit as a prototype because he has a better suit waiting for him at the end.
I'll talk about that later too, because that's important with D23 having happened.
So I think it's I don't think he was planning for Peter to like get backdoor access into his suit.
Yeah, he wanted him to get through it on his own. Okay.
So I think it makes sense if there was a prototype suit that he wouldn't have like set up a firewall. Why would you set up a firewall for something like that? Why?
Probably because he didn't trust Peter enough to have all of that access granted immediately, which I thought was weird.
Sure, but he didn't. It wasn't that he didn't trust Pete.
Except that he didn't.
But he never like took it. But the point when he starts distrusting Peter, he never had an opportunity to like steal the Spider-Man suit and set up another firewall. So like, you know.
Yeah. Shit, I had a point that I wanted to make and I just forgot it.
But I like at the very end that Ned
was useful.
Yeah, it really kind of I would say the main theme of the story is that the suit you have doesn't define you. Or like the powers you have don't define you. It's the ability to be a hero.
And I kind of saw that coming from like a mile away.
But I mean...
Okay, well, remember when I had never seen the ending, but yet I called it before the movie even ended?
That's because you saw the trailer. I'm going to say.
We're going to talk about that later, too. That's something we can both agree on, that the marketing sucks.
Yeah, you predicted the ending. Okay. I should say this. The theater we saw this at had a blackout during the last 5 minutes of the film. And I had to watch someone who like pulled out their iPhone during the ending on YouTube. So thank you, whoever did that. But
he texted me.
He
texted me and said, "Hey, what do you think the ending's gonna be?" And this was as we were walking out the theater. He's like, "Okay, so what do you think the ending of the movie is?" Like I said, it's gonna be this and this. And he pulls out and he's like, "You're 100% right."
But I mean, based on the themes of the story,
it was kind of coming.
Yeah, but it makes sense because Tony is like, I think it's interesting, but it's also really hypocritical because it's Tony who's saying it. When
his entire self-worth is on the Iron Man suit.
Yeah, Iron Man 3 was all about, I need to get rid of my obsession. He blows up all his suits.
Age of Ultron, he's right back in the armor.
Yeah, that's the main problem with the Marvel movies.
And to be fair, they actually did address that in Civil War.
Did they?
Yeah, they did actually.
Because Pepper Potts comes back.
I think that was a problem with this movie, that they just brought her back and didn't explain why they brought her back.
But I mean, okay, this movie, we should. I don't know if we want to transition into how it relates to the rest of the MCU, or
not yet. We want to keep going on the positives.
Okay, so
next positive, Marissa Tomei's Aunt May.
Well, she didn't have much of a role in the story.
And I did make that point when we were talking.
She's just a basic support. I mean, we saw a good amount of her in Civil War. We saw her basic personality. She's not as important to this story
as I had hoped she would be.
Actually, in the deleted scenes, there's a more extended scene with her.
For Civil War?
No, in Homecoming. Have you heard about it?
No.
So basically, this was one of them that they...
Is this related to the ending?
Or... No, it's Aunt May like randomly finds herself in a bad situation and she ends up like saving a girl.
What?
Like just as a random act of heroism.
I kind of like that it was. I'm kind of glad it was deleted because that probably wouldn't have fit anywhere in the movie.
But I guess the idea of that scene was that
heroism runs in Peter's blood.
No, that like she goes home and she doesn't mention to Peter that she was in like this dangerous situation. So there's like a parallel running between them.
And she had made the point that whenever she sees when he blows up the bodega by accident, she's like, "I want you to run away." So I guess that might have fit in like really early in the movie.
Oh yeah, I like that this movie has really human elements to it. Like this is a movie about Peter and where he lives and his relationship to it.
I did like that they nailed down the look of the feel of Queens. That felt like a very Queens-like environment.
I like the scene where he's going to like the
ATM.
No, not the ATM. The scene where he's going to like the, I can't call it a gas station.
The bodega?
I guess. And like he buys that stuff and it sets up that this is a regular place he goes to.
That was actually like a really good scene. Like it just kind of established that Peter kind of has a normal life outside of being Spider-Man.
And it's a really good setup for like
a scene later, the first fight scene?
Yeah, it establishes that this movie is about
community.
Yeah, and this is something that the other Marvel movies don't really do a good job of. Like the Avengers save people,
but they don't really care about the little guy, the individuals.
It's really hard to feel like there's a relationship between them and the rest of the world. But this is a very local story.
Yeah, like the Avengers, they're more pragmatic. Save as many as we can, but the casualties we leave aside.
Spider-Man feels like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah, like you see him interacting with the people. Like he does, like he interacts.
Gets a churro.
Yeah, he gets. That was actually kind of a good one. Like he does a backflip for some random guy when he's bored, and then he
do a backflip.
Those were the scenes where he was in Queens and not interacting with like the larger MCU as a whole. Those were the best scenes in the movie.
It's so human. I love it. But
and also the Stan Lee cameo was actually pretty good too.
Hey. Yeah. But no Stan Lee cameo can top the Deadpool teaser. The Deadpool 2 teaser.
Oh yeah.
Can it, Stan Lee?
I feel bad because his wife died just after this movie released. So this might have been thanks Homecoming, you killed Joan Lee.
Dang it. But okay. Do you want to kind of
transition to things we also agree on Zendaya being absolute garbage in this movie.
Yeah, well, I want to get into that a little bit later because I don't feel like anyone's going to argue
that she was a
I don't think people have to agree with us for them to not be offended when I say I don't like Zendaya, just because she's such a she's such like a unnecessary part of this movie.
She has like 5 lines.
She has 5 lines, and all of them are edgy and stupid.
And I made the point that it feels like there was more for her, that in the original cut there was more for her to do, but it got lost in transition after the whole Mary Jane backlash.
I feel like she was the first character in concept writing.
Well, she was the first person cast besides Tom Holland.
Yeah, I feel like she might have been the first person to like have a definite idea of what her parts of the script would be like.
And then that got lost in transition to the actual movie.
Yeah, I feel because that feels okay. Maybe we should go into Zendaya.
I actually got the
Zendaya in this movie. Her name is like MJ. Well,
not really MJ. She's Michelle Jones.
Oh, I didn't even remember what her name was.
Her name is Michelle Jones.
It's kind of implied in everything except the movie that there's like a Freudian trio of Spider-Man, Ned, and MJ, but which is not true at all because she's barely in the movie. She doesn't do anything. She's not in on the Spider-Man secret. Like, the only reason she's here is to make edgy jokes.
And they're not even really that edgy. They're like something a tween would make. Like,
okay.
I don't enjoy something that was built by slaves. Like, she sounds like a Twitter warrior.
No, not really. Listen, what I like about that joke is that they don't. The movie doesn't really make an opinion about whether or not she's right. They just like, and she's entitled to what she thinks, and they're like, okay, just
the guard. You told me about this. The guard goes, kind of.
Yeah, he's like. He does like a so-so with his hands.
Like he doesn't give a crap. He knows better than to get into that conversation.
No, it was like this. It was like the joke because he was like a black guy, and the teacher's like, "That's not true, is it?" And he's like, "But I mean,
I'm not gonna get into that."
I like that the teacher's like, "Okay, enjoy your book outside." Like he's not. No one really cares except for her.
And even then, I think that was just kind of a cheap jab on her part.
Like, she's entitled to her opinion, whatever. But, like, there's no... Okay, so here's what I don't like about all of the things that she does. It feels like she's supposed to be the cool girl, but if you've met anyone like this in real life...
Everyone hates them.
Well, not only does everyone hate them, they're not interesting. Like, she has this very, like... I won't say nihilistic... but like this cynical outlook on the world, and while cynicism,
she looks like a goth who didn't bother to cut herself or dye her hair black. Like she like I love watching people in crisis.
Okay, but her cynicism is not directed at anything. It's just
a general outlook.
Cynicism is useful in certain situations when you have something to say and your cynicism is directed at something that is worth being cynical about. But she has that teenage issue of, like, cynicism that's directed at nothing, and it makes her seem like a massive poser.
Like one of those kids who jumped on the edge train.
Sit up. But,
yeah.
Yeah, kind of. And it's very weird. She doesn't have enough scenes to, like, get a handle on her personality.
She doesn't have enough scenes to justify her billing status.
She could have been removed from the movie entirely.
And nothing would have changed.
You could have made her a side character that's just referenced as a joke. Like, you know how in The Incredibles there's that kid on the tricycle?
Oh, yeah, and then he comes back later as a bit... And then he comes back later.
Yeah, he has 2 bits. That kid is Zendaya. She shows up randomly to comment on the scene, and then she leaves.
Well, except that the kid in Incredibles had a point. Like, even he had something to do with the story.
No, he didn't. Shut up.
Not even, like... That's not what I mean. He
Shut up.
Jesus Christ. Cut that out of the video.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes, we're cutting it.
No.
I'm not letting you post it without...
Well, guess who doesn't own that? Guess who doesn't own the Aristocratic channel?
Me, but I have the right to protest it because I'm in the video.
Don't be so. Listen.
Okay, he's more. The kid in Incredibles is more like an environment piece.
Well, Zendaya works like an environment piece, but it's like she's an environment piece that the marketing got wrong. That's like if you saw the tricycle kid in the marketing and they gave him a billing.
Yeah. It's
very strange. Zendaya could have been... She could have been in the movie, but they could have not even given her a name in the story, and she would have been just as important. In fact, it might have even been funnier, because then Peter could have been like, "Who are you again?" And she'd be like, "Doesn't matter."
Okay, so I want to address the Zendaya is MJ controversy.
I am not... Okay, here's all I'm going to say about it, and then I'll give you your piece. The only way I'll find it interesting is if, in a later movie, if they're going to expand on her character, they kind of delve into the idea that she is a poser who is who doesn't actually have that much going on. But I don't think they're gonna do that because of how she's handled in the decathlon. She wins it. Yeah. I think so. She isn't really described as having any flaws. She's just a person who points out other people's flaws. It's very strange, but if they kind of expose that hypocrisy and she develops and changes, then I will find her interesting, and I might even congratulate it further. And then this movie really has no flaws.
All right, so my piece is that Zendaya never really was MJ. The whole thing was started because some guy on Latino Review, who was already a known clickbaiter, perpetuated this rumor, and everyone bought into it, including creative team members at Marvel, which is kind of sad, looking at you, Dan Slott. But with the twist that her name is Michelle Jones, but my friends call me MJ, shows that maybe there was a casting for MJ, but because of the backlash, they backtracked and named her someone else.
Well, since she doesn't have a big role in this movie, it's probable that they won't do anything with her.
And if they do say that and even Kevin Feige has said she's not Mary Jane. But if you're going to have Marvel's creative team perpetuate this rumor, either go all the way or don't do it all. Don't just tease us with "my friends call me MJ." Commit.
So you want to talk about the actual love interest, Liz?
Oh yeah, I actually kind of liked her.
I did. You know what I really liked about it that is something that none of the other Spider-Man movies have?
He doesn't get the girl. Well,
no,
I mean, Spider-Man, the Raimi trilogy has
okay,
that happen.
Here's the problem with the Raimi trilogy. It's literally Peter waits for MJ to like date guys until there's no more guys to date, and then he swoops in.
And then he tries to cuck them. He literally cucks John Jameson.
Well, anyway.
But
my point, like, Liz, we don't get a lot of context into Liz as a person, but it's interesting because it seems like she does have a life that she's living, and there's parts of her life that are completely separate from Peter. Like, in all of the other movies, how Peter thinks about something has a definitive effect on what is actually going to happen within the story. But when you think about it, Peter is a young kid. He's 15. And when you're that young, there's just things that you cannot control about your environment.
I think that's true about any person of any age.
Liz, I don't think Liz is that interesting on her own, but I think she's infinitely more interesting than like any of the other like fake out love interests in any of the other Spider-Man movies.
Like the Gwen Bryce Dallas Howard's Gwen in Spider-Man 3. She was more interesting than Bryce Dallas Howard.
But okay, here,
and she was more charismatic in the movies.
Like Gwen in the original Spider-Man trilogy, who barely shows up, but she's not interesting because she's like Liz in that we don't get a lot of context into who she is, but she also doesn't have any effect on Peter. It's just to like perpetuate this melodrama between Mary Jane and Peter.
And she's also kind of an environment piece.
But in this movie, Liz is the main love interest. This movie is separated into Spider-Man stuff and like high school stuff, and it's very interesting in that regard. And I think it's very true to... I feel like this is the best High School Musical movie that has ever been made. Well, I mean like it's the best like made for children light high school fare. Made for tweens, because it says it's more true to life than anything else, and it's not like idealistic, nor is it nihilistic necessarily. It's just the way things are sometimes.
I think Liz is kind of a living representation of that environment. I think Liz is a living representation of that environment. But
and what I love about it is that, again, in all the other movies, there's this massive through line of Peter juggling Spider-Man and being Spider-Man and being a normal kid. And in this movie, I like how it is a main through line of the story, but it is not like played up. It's like Peter doesn't spend a lot of time being like, oh, but will I go to the homecoming dance, or will I stop the villain?
It's like a 5-minute subplot, isn't it?
I like how in the end they completely drop the homecoming thing, because that is what you would do if you were the only person who knew that something like this was going to happen, and you were the only person capable of stopping it. That's what you would do. But it's still called Spider-Man Homecoming, and I think that's important because all throughout the movie there's examples of Peter having to deal with the real world, but like he doesn't get super angsty about it because because that comes secondary to saving people.
Mm-hmm.
But they do go over, like, in the very beginning, he like dropped out of all his after-school activities
to be Spider-Man.
Yeah, even though he wasn't like solving that many issues. So the movie espouses like a balance. Like, you need to live your life, but you also, like, with great power comes great responsibility. And I feel like this movie managed to like send that message like in the background without ever having to like state it at all. And I think that's a very interesting thing.
I do kind of find it odd that Uncle Ben wasn't even mentioned once. Like in the scene where Aunt May goes to drop Peter off at Liz's house, she doesn't go, "Your uncle would be proud of you." I think a nice little mention of Uncle Ben at the very, very least would have been nice.
I feel like they're saving that for a movie that really goes into... I feel like they might bring it up later as like a mass... I feel like this is one of those things... Because this movie would have become bloated if they brought it up and like expanded on it.
I'm not saying they had to make like an entire subplot about it, but just like a nice little mention of him. That would have been more than enough. Especially since we've had the origin twice already. I wouldn't have minded at least getting like a nice little mention. Like your uncle would have been proud. We kind of miss him. Those two lines would have been enough for me.
I guess. But I don't know. I feel like maybe they did it because anyone who's not super familiar on Spider-Man might find it weird that there's just this random reference to an uncle.
Well, I mean, they had references all over the place. Like the Prowler, Montana,
what?
Scorpion.
Those are references that only... It's not like they were like, he's the Scorpion, and you're like, who's the Scorpion? It's like his name is just... They might just be setting him up for a later movie.
You can tell they're setting up for another movie, like in the end credits scene.
Yeah, but no one's gonna be super confused that his name is like... No one's gonna be confused.
There's literally a scene where remember Donald Glover's character? They directly mention him as Aaron the Prowler Davis.
And whatever, he has like a criminal nickname. Who cares? These aren't references that people are gonna get confused about. You understand that, right? But what I do...
Oh, there was also another little Easter egg that I found kind of interesting. Just like kind of all the little references to other pieces of the Spider-Man mythos, like the prototype, the original costume that he wears during the final fight scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's there reminiscent of the Scarlet Spider costume, and there's also a character on the decathlon team named Cindy. And if you've been reading recent Spider-Man comics, then that name will make a lot more sense to you.
Well, I kind of want to stray away from references and stuff. I feel like I want to save that for later when we get into like what can they do with this now that it's been made. Where can they go with this? But I want to get into
Oh, also a nice little detail.
Wait, I'm trying to... All right, say that, but I won't be listening to you because I'm trying to think of something.
That they're setting things up, but it's definitely going past Infinity War. Like the selling of Stark Tower to an anonymous buyer, it's gotta mean something. Like I'm fairly certain that after the Infinity Saga, they're gonna set up.
What if it was Norman Osborn?
That's what I was about to say. They're gonna set up Thunderbolts.
Yeah, what if it was Norman Osborn?
I'm fairly certain that it's gonna be Norman Osborn.
Norman Osborn is like the Lex Luthor of the Marvel Universe.
Well, yeah, because he managed to take over S.H.I.E.L.D. and renamed it Hammer, became a national idol, and
Hammer.
Because I think they're gonna adapt Dark Reign after this because,
well, I don't know.
The Iron Patriot armor is still out there. The Iron Patriot armor is still out there.
So if we can back up for a second. I love that this movie... Okay, can I just talk about the very general... I feel like I should have mentioned this earlier, but these are the very general things that I love about this movie. One, okay, these are all the things that all the Marvel movies do that Spider-Man did not do, and because Spider-Man did these things, it makes me really happy. One, this is a very local story where the world doesn't blow up or whatever. And a beam doesn't shoot up into the sky.
Oh, look, someone didn't see Ant-Man.
But, like...
that was, like, its own little niche in the Marvel Universe. Like, a heist movie. You don't see those very often.
Yeah, but...
it's a very local movie. It takes place in San Fran. Which is probably even smaller scale than New York, I might argue.
I would say the thing that kind of put me off of Ant-Man was the color design.
For the suit?
No, just in general, because it was a very like dull color palette. Spider-Man's a very bright and vivid movie.
Yeah, that's a fair argument. It's very bright, like it's saturated.
Ant-Man just has the same visual design as all the rest of the Marvel movies, and that kind of bugged me.
Yeah.
bugged me.
Kill yourself.
There should be a Spider-Man and Ant-Man team up.
You're saying that because they're both insect themed.
Arachnid, but
Oh, hey, you got a joke. That's progress.
that's not a joke. That's a correction.
Well, you've never seen Spectacular Spider-Man.
Whatever. But so yeah, I love that this is a very local story, and it's a very relatable story. And second, this movie is very aware of everything that has happened in the MCU, and it makes sure to explain what SHIELD is doing while the movie is going on and why SHIELD isn't helping. And it mentions Captain America, and it like puts into context. I love that this movie gives us an outside view of how the Avengers are being responded to by the world at large, because it makes it feel like this is a real world where people are living. Like they play like in the beginning when Liz and her friends are talking about the Avengers.
The F kill Mary. That was an okay scene, I guess.
I found that scene very interesting because it tells me, because if you think about it, the Avengers are a very recent thing, but we have had so little
context as to what other people think of them besides people they save.
Yeah, so it's not, we see like the Captain America training videos, and we're like, okay, so the Avengers are being like normalized into society.
Like they're a common part of today's world.
They're basically celebrity police.
When you put it like that.
and I love how they kind of reference Civil War very briefly, but it speaks more to the idea that Civil War was something that was very closed off and did not, like...
Yeah, they mentioned once that Cap's a war criminal.
Yeah.
Like, they don't really know the major details. They just know what the government has told them.
Yeah, because if you think about it, S.H.I.E.L.D. would not talk about this at all. S.H.I.E.L.D. would not want to talk about this. Obviously, they'd have to say that, like, Captain America is a war criminal, blah, 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 blah. But...
like, Peter knows what's going on, but nobody else does. And I think that's kind of a cute little touch.
I like how Peter is extremely unconcerned with the events of Civil War because it's so confusing that he doesn't care. He just learned to look over it. I don't even understand what happened in Civil War.
I kind of do, but
mostly because there were like 20 main characters.
That movie just seemed like a setup for more movies, I'll be honest.
I guess, but like it's weird that movie didn't lead to them making follow-up movies to kind of like expand on it.
Yeah.
Also, they never mentioned Ultron and the fact that Tony Stark made him. So
in Civil War.
Oh yeah,
that's one of his major reasons for signing the Sokovia Accords.
No, the reason he signs the Sokovia Accords is because some random mother is like, my child died, and then he's super upset. But he's not upset that he created Ultron and then blew up a city. That never gets mentioned.
Well, I think Sokovia was the only thing that really justified the Avengers being sanctioned by the government. Because
it doesn't even make sense. What are they even asking? Well, whatever.
They're asking for the Avengers to be registered by UN panel, and because
the UN doesn't do anything.
That's the point that Cap's trying to make. Agendas change.
No, the thing they don't bring up is that the UN is really slow,
and they have Saudi Arabia as the leader of the Human Rights Council.
But, like, can you imagine the UN convening while Ultron is destroying a city to see if the Avengers could come in and do anything?
That's exactly Cap's argument in the movie.
No, they don't bring up real-world stuff. Cap is just like, my freedom.
He literally says in the movie, what if they tell us to go somewhere where we shouldn't go?
He's making the argument for why the army is weird, because, like, the army has no account... The people in the army...
What the fuck are you talking about? The army has no accountability?
No, what I'm saying is, like, an individual soldier can't make moral decisions in the army about whether or not what he's doing is right.
Yes, he can! That's called individualism.
Yeah.
You're saying that the soldiers in the U.S. Army are the frickin' Borg.
No, you can be drafted into the army to fight for a cause you don't believe in.
Yes, but you can desert.
That's illegal.
So what?
What do you mean, so what? That's the whole argument.
It's the whole moral conscience.
Cap defected.
That's the point. He's standing for what he knows is right.
But, okay, the Avengers need some level of accountability, but Cap is not the one that needs to be held accountable.
It's Tony.
And Tony doesn't even bring up the main thing he needs to be accountable about. Whatever. This is totally
Pointless
unrelated.
About Spider-Man.
And also, I don't even understand what you're arguing, but
that Spider-Man just doesn't care about the events of Civil War. They're so unimportant to him that he was just there as kind of a
well, I'm gonna go back on
fist.
that. I'd say he cares, but he has so little context into what was happening that it shouldn't even concern him. Like, he was just called in randomly, and he just kind of fought because it was like, whatever.
It's Iron Man. He's pretty chill.
Yeah, but
well, it also shows that Peter's kind of unaware of the larger events that have happened. Like, he doesn't recognize why Ultron went rogue.
Okay, here's the other thing I like. They didn't kill the villain.
Yeah, that's a good twist. That's a good change of pace from normal MCU films.
There was no death fake out for the heroes.
Well, they're kind of... Well, they're not... There was one where it's like, oh, he's trapped under rubble and he's gonna do something heroic.
Yeah, but that's not a death fake out. Like...
Well, you collapse a building on a guy, you kind of expect him to die.
No, that's like the end of the second act where it's like his lowest point. That's what I like about this movie. It has a very clearly defined 3-act structure where Peter like learns and like.
Well, no, the second act ending was when Tony takes the suit away.
But like
the third act is him kind of getting his shit together.
I would say the lowest point extends from like when he loses the suit to like
when he asks Liz to homecoming.
Okay, I would say that him like lifting up the rubble was like his resurrection.
What the fuck? What does that even mean?
No, like when the hero has to go through a final trial where
I don't know. I think that
where he encounters death and learns a lesson from it.
I think that plane was kind of I think that plane crashing was kind of a lesson for him.
No, because he doesn't. No, I would say the third act takes up like him confronting the Vulture and then the final battle. And the final battle is the climax of the story. But before the climax, we have like a moment where Peter has to like come to terms with himself. What? When he's lifting up the rubble, he's like, "Come on, Peter. Come on, Spider-Man." He's like, he has.
That's just ripping off "If This Be My Destiny." That's just them really taking a panel from the comics and putting it in the movie.
Yeah, but it works within the context of the movie.
I guess.
You can't criticize the fact that like a scene that worked in the movie was in the comics for a comic book movie. Like, I'm talking about this movie as it is, and Peter is coming to terms with the fact that he is Spider-Man. Spider-Man is not a suit that can be given to him or taken away.
Except that when he does it, it's preceded by Tony saying, if you're nothing without the suit, then you don't deserve it.
Exactly. So Peter was putting like all his worth into the idea that what they gave him was what defined him, and if they took that away, he's no longer Spider-Man and he can't be a hero. But it's like, if you can't be a hero when you don't have this suit, then you don't deserve to have it in the first place. Do you see what I mean?
Kind of.
You're too far away.
No, I'm not. It can still pick me up.
Whatever. But Can you not see that that's like a super cool idea? And when he's like lifting up the rubble, he's like really internalizing that and being like, Spider-Man is me. Peter and Spider-Man are the same. Like when he looks
I get that. I just wish Tom Holland had been a little less whiny when he did it. Like, I get that he's a 15-year-old kid and he thinks he's about to die, but
if you're about to die, Neil, if you were about to die, you would be a little bit whinier than that. Plus, you can like really tell that he is like putting everything into lifting up that rubble.
Yeah, I'll give Spider-Man some flack for this. Like, there's that scene where he's buried under like a bunch of sticks, and he's like, it took him that much effort to jump out of that pile of sticks.
Or like in Spider-Man 1, where he's like holding the wires of like a train car, and it's really ill-defined how strong he actually is.
I chalk that more up to the technical spec. The technical implications of that era of filmmaking.
Yeah, this movie was gorgeous to look at.
I think it has the privilege of being in an age where CGI is at its finest.
Well, even within the context of the other Marvel movies, its color design was fantastic, very bright and vibrant. It really fit with the high school theme. Oh, so let's talk about I'm going to think this might be the most contentious thing. The Flash.
The Flash.
Flash
Yes,
Thompson.
I didn't know we were talking about a DC movie.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Flash Thompson. He calls himself the Flash. Not in this movie, but somewhere.
Yeah, Spectacular Spider-Man, so you did watch it.
Probably not.
Of course you didn't.
I just know that Flash Thompson would call himself the Flash. The Flash. But I like this version of Flash.
You just like this movie. That's just you projecting.
Yeah, I like this movie because everything in this movie was cool. Like, you're just making up excuses for...
No, I'm not. I have legitimate grievances with this movie.
Okay, do you want to just like have an argument for like the like you bring up your grievances and we'll yell at each other.
All right. My grievance with Flash is that I don't care if he's like this Guatemalan kid. I care that he is practically nothing. He is exactly nothing like comic book Flash. Like, I get adaptations have to change things, but
within the context of the movie, it would have been really weird.
So what? At least make him something of a Chad. Like, at least give him some muscle. Make him look like he could actually harass Peter.
You don't need muscle to harass Peter. He doesn't even...
At least make him taller. He's a short little manlet. I could probably bully him.
Listen,
Peter could probably bully him.
I was bullied in high school by a 15-year-old Asian girl.
That's kind of sad then.
Not really.
Yeah, that's actually pretty sad.
Not really. If you do, she was like the meanest person on the planet, but like everyone liked her.
Which one was?
And Ashley Wu.
Oh,
I'm gonna cut out me naming her. But yeah, she was really mean.
Okay.
We shared like one class, so I always had to be around her. And so I like that this movie is bringing up the idea that this is the idea that who you are is not limited by what you can do, because if you're a jerk and you hate someone, you can find a way to attack them. I like that the Flash is like a person who's clearly going somewhere, like he has plans for the future, and like...
No, he doesn't. He's a snotty little rich kid who doesn't even know what he's doing for dinner.
Yeah, but he joined the decathlon and he's involved in clubs. So I find that idea interesting because there's no such thing as like a one-note bully whose prime was just in like high school because they never did anything.
You've never been to public high school. How would you know that?
Well, okay, but like I have never known someone who was just like a jock jerk.
I have, so I can attest to the fact that they do exist.
Yeah, but like within the context of like a really big public school, would there even be a point in Peter and Flash interacting at all?
Yes. You'd be surprised.
Like the fact that they exist in the same circles. I like that no one actually likes Flash because he's not charismatic at all.
Except that they go along with him at the party. They chant Penis Parker with him. Which
no,
is weird
like
because
every named character dislikes him, even like Liz.
even Zendaya. Oh, okay, no, I don't think that's really a surprise for her.
Zendaya is, but I mean like
That's how little impact she has. We just call her Zendaya and not her actual character's name.
I keep forgetting her name.
That's how pathetic it is.
MJ, whatever.
Michelle. I don't care anymore.
But yeah, I mean, obviously Flash has some friends somewhere, like people that are his friends, but they don't really hang out.
But in that circumstance, I find it weird that someone would go to Homecoming with him, even though everyone points out that he's an asshole.
Did someone go to Homecoming with you?
Yes, actually, they did.
Exactly.
But at least I have a redeeming quality. He doesn't have any redeeming qualities. He doesn't have like a sense of honor.
He's kind of smart.
Kind of. When everyone around him is a genius.
He's rich.
That's not a redeeming quality.
Okay, this is what I like. Because bullies or people that are extremely unlikable have people that surround them, and because they don't know how unlikable they are yet, or like they're putting on the best of their personality for them, and we both know someone like this. Let's let him be unnamed. But we know someone who's like a suck up to authority figures, but a massive jerk in every other category, and like extremely unlikable. No. Although that would be... How could he ever I'm talking about someone who we were friends with.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, so let it be known that this type of person exists, and I would say is more common than... I like that Flash has been updated because if you think about it, how could Flash the Jock enter into this movie? Because this movie does not focus on any elements like that. So the Flash that we get in this movie is written to work with this movie. And that's another thing. I like the Sam Raimi...
in gym class? Wouldn't that kind of...
Yeah, but like Flash works much better as someone who like challenges Peter.
But he doesn't! Peter surpasses him at every level!
But Flash doesn't know that. Like,
yes, he does. In chemistry, in that class in chemistry where Peter's not even paying attention and he still managed to get it right.
Yeah, but Flash is like, "Oh my god, I hate you. I'm gonna kill you." But it's like, here's the thing, right? You can understand, like, the Sam Raimi Flash does not have like a personality.
Well, I think Amazing Spider-Man Flash had more personality than either Flash. Not
Amazing Spider-Man had a Flash.
Yeah.
See, that's how much Flash has like no impact on the other. Flash in this movie has a purpose, and he fits within the movie. He fits within the tone of the movie. He's like a narcissist who thinks he's better than he actually is. And Peter is someone who he perceives as an easy target for like making fun of whenever he wants to, because it inflates his ego, even though everyone is like, shut up.
All right, here's a good question. Where do you see Flash going in the future?
Either he grows out of this personality, or like he'll just get like a regular, probably upper class job. Not like some sort of mathematics related job.
I kind of wanted to see him in the army. This
isn't an Agent Venom thing.
I really want my Agent Venom movie.
You're not gonna. Maybe they might give Agent Venom to a different character.
They might, if they do go ahead with the whole Venom in the MCU thing that they've been kind of going back and forth on. They might give it to Matt Gargan. I would
like Venom to be someone else. That's
Matt Gargan.
You can do a lot of things with Venom. It doesn't necessarily have to be like an Eddie Brock character.
I'm not saying it does. In fact, I argued that Eddie Brock is probably one of the more plain versions of Venom. He's like vanilla Venom.
Like he's just like he lifts.
Well, that actually kind of was his character until he actually got the symbiote.
Yeah, he lifts. You could get... What I think is interesting about Venom is whoever you give it to will get to play off of what Venom gives you. Like, just unbridled power and mild insanity that later becomes medium insanity. So... I think... I don't know. If they're gonna make Venom a younger kid, they could give it to, like a really, like, disillusioned youth kind of character.
Well, I think that would actually work with Flash, like movie Flash, because
I can't see Flash.
I can see him becoming a better person. That was his entire shtick in the comics. That when Peter got the responsibility with the power that he now has, he was able to make Flash a better person. And Flash always had an honorable side to him. He just wasn't available when he was tormenting Peter.
I can imagine this Flash becoming a better person just because literally no one likes him. I like this Flash. I can understand why you don't like him because he's not...
He doesn't have any... I just don't think he has any redeeming qualities, and that was always what made Flash kind of endearing.
He doesn't have any redeeming qualities, but if you gave him... None of the other Flashes in any of the other movies have redeeming qualities.
I'm not saying they did, but they had a chance to make Flash redeemable.
This Flash isn't redeemable, but he's interesting enough that they could give him a redeeming quality later. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe he does become a Spider-Man fanboy. Probably not. Spider-Man stole his car.
And wrecked it.
Give me your car.
And probably got crushed by the robot from that building.
Maybe. That would be interesting.
I do still want to see Agent Venom because Flash as Venom was probably one of the best interpretations of the character.
Okay, would you like to see this Flash get more screen time? Because there's a lot more you could do with him, I think.
I do agree that there's more they could have done with him, and that's the problem. They could have given him qualities that made him endearing.
I think the qualities they gave him in this movie worked for this movie. That's what I like.
That they just needed a foil in high school, and Flash kind of just fit that niche.
Exactly, but there's a lot more going on with him that just is not relevant to this movie.
I don't even really see anything that happened outside of what was happening in the movie, so that's the problem. We don't really know that much about him. That was a problem that the other Flashes in the other movies suffer. We don't know anything about them, so we don't really have a reason for them to be foils to Peter.
This movie expects you to already understand the Spider-Man canon so that you can intuit some of the things that are happening that are not relevant to the story that much. Like Flash being a bully.
That's kind of a given.
It only comes up in a few scenes, and that one scene where he's like, "You're dead." Or like
my fist knocking your teeth out. That's the...
It's payback time. But
Morning, Parker.
that doesn't come up later. You could expect that it might have been the reason that he was DJing and being a massive jerk.
And I think that... Remember how in ASM 2 when they were like promoting all those sequels and spin-offs, like they had Flash in there?
But I think Flash in this movie works because he's not a hero. He's too self-serving to be Spider-Man. If you gave him the Spider-Man powers, can you imagine what kind of person he would have became?
He probably would have killed a person. And that was actually a what-if at one point in the comics.
Yeah, but you could see like with Ned, every character has a relationship to Spider-Man in like how they perceive Spider-Man. And I think that's the most interesting thing. Like, either they have some relationship to how Peter acts and how Peter as Spider-Man works, or they have some relationship to how they perceive Spider-Man with Liz or Ned. And because they cut out all the origin stuff, and they cut out all the like melodrama of, oh, I know you're Peter Parker, like they just get that right out of the way with Ned. And then they spend all the rest of the time developing on the idea that this person who doesn't have a real, like, who isn't old enough to, like, understand the gravity of the situation, fanboying over it.
Yeah.
But then becoming serious later and understanding the consequences of what's going on.
That seems fair.
I think that's very interesting. And you can see there's a lot of things about this movie that are really interesting. Like, things that they haven't done in the movies before, or if they tried to do it, they didn't expand on it enough.
Yeah. I do think they're probably just more setting up Flash to be a bigger player in future movies, but he works kind of as a foil. I just wish they'd done more with him and made him at least seem like he would be, at least make him look like he could bully Peter, not the other way around.
Well, I mean, Peter wouldn't bully him. Like
I mean, in the comics, it would have been justified because Peter acted like a school shooter most of the time in his earlier appearances.
Yeah, here's the thing. In the Sam Raimi movies, like, Peter's come up and is beating up the Flash. And
why do you keep calling him the Flash? It's just weird.
I don't know, because his name is stupid. Eugene. He keeps beating up Eugene.
Oh, Lord.
But you see how that wouldn't have worked in this movie, because this movie very clearly cares about,
focuses more on Peter's
it focuses on being semi-realistic to what would actually happen if certain things happen. Like, you missed the decathlon, you did this, you did that,
you ditched your date at homecoming.
Yeah, like all the consequences of the I like the last scene with Liz and Parker where she's like,
you're a bit of a dick.
Well, she's like, you have a lot of stuff going on, and I can't deal with that right now.
So, bye.
Yeah. Liz does not consider Peter important enough to let... Like, the situation has become too big for this to go on
I think that the reason...
And I love...
Peter and Gwen... I think that's the reason it worked best, because she wasn't deep enough into Peter's personal life that she cared. Like, Peter and Gwen in the Amazing movies, they're definitely deep enough into each other's personal lives that they cared what was happening with each other.
No, but even in the Amazing Spider-Man, it's like, your dad died, now I can get all over you. It's like, it's very weird. It's very weird. It's just like, it's Peter eliminating all the obstacles to get at the girl.
I'll slay that.
It's very... And that's in the Sam Raimi movies, too.
I'll cuck Jameson's son.
Harry's out of the picture.
Better go.
The astronaut's out of the picture.
Venom's out of the picture.
It's really weird, and I love that this movie, like, it's just a high school, like, mild romance where they don't know what they're doing, and that's really cute, and I like it.
I think the Shocker was the best character because he beat the shit out of Tom Holland. I actually kind of like the Shocker.
Okay, whatever. Is there something else that you don't like about this movie so that I can tell you that you're wrong?
Let me see. Let me think real quick.
This isn't really a review. This is more of a...
The CGI at times was really clunky. There's that scene where he lands on he's stopping the train on the boat, and he jumps down. And it's like really obvious he's CGI'd.
I mean, the Spider-Man suit is obviously CGI'd, and I like that they didn't. I like that this design is much more simplistic, and it doesn't try to go for like a fabric.
There's no basketball hoop. There's no basketball fabric used for the costume. That was a problem I had with the Amazing suit.
And I like that because they did that, they could use brighter colors on the suit.
I also didn't like Karen. I get what they were going for. She's kind of a voice in his head. Allowing him to kind of she's kind of, you know how they have the captions in comic books where he's talking to himself in his head.
Okay, I like that his suit is very high tech.
I don't. I wish Peter could have gone. I don't like that Peter had to rely. I get that Peter relied on Stark for the materials to make this suit, but like it would have been cool if like on the flight to Berlin, Tony's like, "Here, have a lab, make a suit. You got 24 hours, buddy."
That would have been really weird, though.
Why?
I don't know. Tony would have already made a suit. He's like an obsessed... All he does is make suits all day. You think he wouldn't have made a Spider-Man suit?
Well, I don't know. He wouldn't have known exactly what the kid was capable of, so he would have let the kid decide for himself.
Yeah, but then that would have established him as like a super, super genius.
You've never read a comic book, have you?
But, like, at least we know that since getting his superpowers, he spent, like, a lot of time developing...
Tech.
No, developing the Spider-Man web fluid. Like, it...
There's a scene... there's actually a scene I really like in the movie where he is in the chemistry class and he's, like, mixing his web formula in a cabinet.
Yeah, like, you can tell if he wasn't Spider-Man, he still would have, like, gone places because he's really smart and creative.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that he's smart in, like, every area. It's just the areas that really concern him. And he did make his web shooters, but, like, that's not to say necessarily... He's not, like, a programming master.
I'm not saying he is, but, like, the basic Spider-Man suit, Tony could have given them materials and say, have it here. No, you know you better than I do. So make it how you want.
No, but that's, like... There's way too much to create there. But I like that Spider-Man, by the end of it...
realizes that he's more than him.
No, I'm talking about the tech of the suit. I like how they use the tech of the suit. Like,
I like the lenses. That was very Steve Ditko-ish of them.
I like how he has all these different webs, and
I don't, but whatever.
I do. I mean,
like, it would have been cool if he discovered. You know what would have been cool? Reference impact webbing.
Maybe that's something. Like, they might bring it up later. I just like that. I like how he's very inexperienced in this movie, and he's like trying to learn how to deal with these situations, and he can very often find himself. He can find himself losing his composure or like not knowing what to do next. And like by the end of it, he becomes a more competent person. And this is the most human Marvel movie because every other Marvel movie, all the flaws of the characters stay exactly the same. Like, what is Iron Man's flaw in the first movie? He's arrogant and he's obsessed with suits.
Well, he's not obsessed with hookers anymore.
Whatever.
Any
character development someone goes through.
Captain America.
He doesn't
even really have any problems.
Captain America was a cinnamon roll from the beginning.
Yeah.
Chris Evans is amazing.
I think the Captain America movies show Cap more being disillusioned with the world around him.
The problem is like all the Avengers when they're all together, they just like fall into like 2 or 3 mindsets and then they split off into groups of that mindset. So there's basically 3 characters talking, but they speak out of other people's mouths.
Yeah.
Spider-Man is so unique in that regard because his opinion is colored by everyone in the Avengers is like a mid-20s to late 30s.
I think they established that Cap was like they established that he
Cap
was like 21 when he started fighting in World War II.
Well, everyone's an adult who by this point in the series, most of them have the same worldview. Like, there's not a lot of distinction between them except for like 1 or 2 things.
Like, the only people I can see that really have a different opinion are probably Scarlet Witch and Vision. But Vision's mostly just spouting out philosophical BS, and Wanda's just moping.
But by the end, Scarlet Witch is basically the same as everyone. Scarlet Witch doesn't have a personality. What is Scarlet Witch's personality?
She blew people up and she feels bad.
Yeah, but it could have been anyone that did that.
Yeah.
Pro tip, if you could switch around the dial in like Civil War, you could have switched around which characters joined which sides and it wouldn't have mattered at all.
Yeah.
You could have switched around who said what lines. And
in fact, the teams that they were on probably could have been swapped around. They probably would have been for the better. Like, Black Widow being on Cap's team would have made more sense.
I think she, like, switched sides by the end.
She kind of did. It's like, oh, I said I would help you find
She's a double agent. That's, like, the only...
That's Scarlett Johansson's only gimmick. She's...
a double agent.
Yeah, that's all she does throughout all the movies.
But now she just fights good, I guess.
Yeah.
But, Spider-Man... In Spider-Man Homecoming, you can tell who says what because everyone has a very defined worldview, and they're very clear.
Yeah,
like you couldn't switch around who says what
like
and have it make sense.
Vulture has a very specific voice to him.
Yeah,
it sticks to you.
Can you see why this movie is the best one?
I can see why it's one of the better ones, but it's not the best one to me. I'll rank it within my top 2.
Even Guardians of the Galaxy suffered from the problem that like
they all eventually came around at the end.
And like
they're all just unanimous on their decision.
Deus Ex Machina.
Here, have the power gem.
It feels like this good idea for a movie was just given a cookie cutter plot.
One of the problems I have is that is that Spider-Man's quips weren't nearly as funny as they should have been. Like, in all the Marvel movies, they all have, like, these quips. Like, they've even become kind of a meme at this point that they're all lol, so random quips. And that kind of lessens the impact of Peter's jokes because everyone else does it around him.
I like that this movie actually had a scene with really good tension. Like this, again, the scene with Liz, Peter, and the Vulture in the car.
Yeah, that was pretty...
That is the most tense scene in any of these movies because it has this slow burn where we're wondering how much has each character figured out.
But we know Peter's kind of figured out that Vulture is Toombs.
Obviously, he's seen his face.
Well, yeah, I know, but we don't know how much Liz or Toombs know, and I guess that makes it interesting.
That entire homecoming scene was fantastic.
You think everything was fantastic.
I would say that scene alone was like the best scene in the entire MCU. Because on its own, it's like this great, like... It's hard to feel tension in the Marvel movies when it's just them beating up a bunch of guys and then making quips.
Yeah, the problem with most of the MCU movies is that you know they're not gonna die. Is that you know they're not gonna suffer any real major consequences because they're gonna be in the next movie. And I guess...
But Spider-Man did such an interesting thing because
I'm trying to make that point.
No one's gonna die.
But there's going to be repercussions for his personal life.
Exactly. What he does with the Vulture. Like, we're set up to believe that, like, there's this structure that they're setting up. But then they throw a curveball by changing the dynamics.
Yeah.
And we know that the main character is not going to die. But his relationship with the other characters is going to be fundamentally changed.
Like at the end of Age of Ultron, nothing really seemed like it changed. They're back to being quip lords.
Even in the solo movies, things rarely change.
Like Doctor Strange, nothing happened. Like all he did was say, "Dormammu, I've come to bargain." That's the only change that happened.
And with the Captain America and Iron Man movies, the status quo returns to normal so fast. Like in Winter Soldier, S.H.I.E.L.D. was completely upended, and by the next movie, nothing had changed.
What do you mean?
Like they found out that there were all these like sleeper cells in S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.H.I.E.L.D. was basically being run by evil people, but no repercussions came out of that, and it was never mentioned again.
Yes, they did in Age of Ultron.
How so?
They're literally fighting Hydra at the beginning of the movie. They put an end to the last Hydra cell. Or at least one of the last Hydra cells.
With what was his name? Crossbones?
Baron von Strucker. In Age of Ultron. Age of Memetron.
Oh,
in the first scene, like they're at the castle in Sokovia.
Oh, yeah, but like they never mention that they infiltrate. It's just them fighting some guys.
They mention it. They say we haven't found this since S.H.I.E.L.D. collapsed. I guess it's kind
since S.H.I.E.L.D. collapsed, but now it's fine again. No, the status quo is God in this universe.
The status quo is God in every universe.
But in Spider-Man, something changed.
Really? What changed?
Everything. At the end, Aunt May found out that Spider-Man was Peter Parker.
I actually want to talk about that. Aunt May finding out Peter was Spider-Man.
That's so interesting because
I don't like that they played it as a joke. Like
no, they're setting it up.
But like the way she goes, "What the fuck?" That they treat that as like a joke. You're supposed to laugh at that when she should be like, "Holy shit, my nephew is a superhero."
Well, can you imagine how they would have handled that scene?
Yes, because they've done it before in the comics.
Yeah, but like, can you imagine it in this movie?
Yes!
Where? They can't spend like 20 extra minutes at the end of the movie.
Like when Peter says, "I lost the Stark internship," that would have been a great moment for him to open up and say, "I'm Spider-Man," and they could have connected even more than they already
No, that
have.
would have taken like 10 minutes to... This movie...
In a 3-hour movie...
Yeah, but this movie is long for a reason because there's a lot going on. I don't want there to be this extra thing. I like that they're saving... I like that they might do this off screen.
Except that it's going to be a jump from... Except that we've got from this Spider movie to the next one, there's like a slew of like 5 different movies. Both Infinity War movies, Captain Marvel, Black Panther, and Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, so I think...
So there's going to be a very long jump between Aunt May discovering Peter as Spider-Man and the next Spider-Man movie.
I think what they're going to do is that Aunt May will have come to terms with that fact by the time Spider-Man comes back. So, or if they really wanted to, they could put it in some after-credit scenes.
I also kind of... there's another scene...
Or you know how, like, they sometimes have one-shots? They could have, like, a one-shot of them having this conversation.
I know, I'm just... The scene was already done perfectly in the comics. Like, she finds him bleeding and battered on his bedroom floor with his Spider-Man costume tattered around him.
But that reveal would have needed its own movie. Like, that would have had to be its own
And that's
thing.
the problem with leaving it on a cliffhanger, that you need another movie to do it, to set it out. And I just don't think that really works.
Do you think maybe they'll play it off as him being like... I'm just cosplaying as Spider-Man.
No, I will be freaking pissed if they do that.
So you're pissed if they do it like this, but you're pissed if they're going to try doing it again.
Yes, because it's complicated. If they...
I like what they did. I like how they're getting it out of the way. They're trying to tell interesting stories with parts of the canon that haven't really been touched before. And if you think about it, it's not that interesting for people to know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. What's interesting, or not interesting for them to find out, it's more interesting to see how they react to him doing stuff knowing that he's Spider-Man, and how they react when other people talk about him. So I like that they're like cutting out the middleman here, so because this movie was already pretty long, and I feel
it felt the high school scenes kind of dragged at points.
I don't think so. I feel like this movie was paced out perfectly.
The scene where Shocker and Montana go to high school, that scene would have been completely pointless to me.
Here's the thing. Pacing is subjective, so I get that, but this movie for me, something like Batman v Superman drags on forever because because you could take every scene and rearrange them.
Because you're still waiting for them to fight. That's the problem with Batman versus Superman.
It's not that I'm waiting for them to fight. It's that, like, it's just a bunch of scenes of people doing nothing. They're not even setting things up. In Spider-Man Homecoming, they set things up.
Yeah,
like things happen, and every scene has a logical through line. A lot happened in this movie, and a lot had to happen in this movie. This was Spider-Man's movie, and Spider-Man... Like, this was a movie that was all about Spider-Man's relationship to the world around him. His villain was related to something like that without being a villain that he created. That's the problem with some superhero movies like Age of Ultron, which is like when you create your own villain.
That was Ultron to begin with. That was what made Hank Pym go over the deep end, was that he felt guilt for building this weapon of mass destruction.
I'm talking about in the MCU. It's like we're supposed to feel good that the Avengers stopped Ultron, but they also created Ultron, and they never mentioned this.
That's just Tony's fault.
But, like, okay, here's the thing. And this is the problem with, like, all of the DC movies except for Wonder Woman, is, like, they create their own villains, and then they have to senselessly kill them.
Man of Steel? Yes, I remember Superman creating General Zod.
No, but the only reason General Zod came to Earth and tried to like do whatever he did there was because Superman was there. So if Superman wasn't there, there would have been no need for him to have been there in the first place, because Zod would not have come to Earth.
Alright, what about Justice League?
Justice League is not out yet.
But they're setting up a Steppenwolf. I don't think they're going to create Steppenwolf.
I don't know. It was in Zod's ship, so because Zod went there, that also makes it Superman's fault that they found Earth. I don't know. Wonder Woman took a step in the right direction. It's still really weird. I don't really want to get into Wonder Woman. It's past its prime. But
I feel like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was probably a better movie than this one. I don't know, it just had a bit more. It had a lot more heart to it.
This movie had so much heart, though. This movie was clearly made by a bunch of people who were super excited to have Spider-Man back.
I think everyone was excited to have Spider-Man back.
But you can tell these people were like, we are gonna make this the best movie ever. And it's just really fun and really genuine.
Maybe I just felt like I was lied to by the marketing department at times.
That's because the marketing department had nothing to do with the actual movie-making process.
I know, but like they said it was going to be like a Breakfast Club movie when in reality it didn't really feel like the Breakfast Club at all.
Zendaya was probably
part of that prototype.
It was a layover of the Breakfast. She is the most Breakfast Club character of all of this. She's just a character who's sitting around and quipping,
being a complete cynic about her environment.
Exactly.
Like I said, when they say it was supposed to be a Breakfast Club movie, that's what it was supposed to be, but then it got turned into a completely different film.
Yeah,
and that makes me feel.
I haven't seen all of the Breakfast Club. I've just seen parts of it, but
it's a very cynical movie to me.
Is it just like a bunch of teenagers being like these poser adults?
Kind of.
Is it like Catcher in the Rye but with no self-awareness?
I think it's actually kind of self-aware at times. Like they recognize that they're pretty horrible people.
Like, Catcher in the Rye is all about, like, a guy that's, like, the world is fake and everything's fake, but he's, like, the most fake person of all.
Yeah, they're kind of like that. It's actually a very Catcher in the Rye-esque story, which I don't...
Yeah, see, that's what they should have done with Zendaya.
They should have made her...
I feel like she might have had some of that if the story was more focused on her.
Well, I think
if she stays a joke character, that'd be fine. The
problem is that Zendaya... if they gave Zendaya a story, it would have the same problem as Aunt May finding out Peter was Spider-Man and dedicating a whole subplot to that. It would add more time to a movie that was already at a good pacing.
Do you have any other problems with this?
Not really.
I feel like we've just been rambling about random things all this time.
Oh, I'd also like to point out that they're probably going to do Dark Reign. I want to see Thunderbolts.
So, for the last part of this, let's do a little bit of speculation as to what's going to happen next and, like, where they're going to take this.
I made a very long post cementing what I thought was going to happen for Phase 4 on Comic Vine. That
they might do a Sinister Six thing because they have the Scorpion.
They need a very long time to set it up because while they had a lot of villains in this movie, kind of, they made more references to villains than actually having villains. But
now that I think about it, Vulture was very Sandman.
Yeah, kind of, but not in the same vein.
Sandman if he was like a real person.
Yeah, not just some criminal who killed Uncle Ben.
If you liked Spider-Man 3 for like Sandman's arc or whatever,
I don't think he really had an arc. No one in that movie had an actual arc.
He had things that happened to him.
That's like every character in every movie ever.
He had that one scene where he was picking up the locket. If you like that scene, you'll probably like this movie.
Okay, I'm not going to question that logic. But
if you like Spider-Man, you'll like this movie. But you have to, like, not be a cynical jerk like Neil.
No, screw you. You also have to not be a very comics... You have to also be a very person who's very open to adaptation.
Yeah, which I am. I'm open to adaptation. If the original source material exists, obviously you're going to have to make changes.
I get that. It's sort of like Amazing Spider-Man 2 where too much was changed.
I guess. Well, it's not that too much was changed. It's just that everything was really stupid, and there were way too many things going on.
All right, so speculation time. Oscorp buys Stark Tower, or you know what? U.S. government.
Do you think they're gonna do Harry Osborn?
Probably not, but I have a theory that they're gonna do Norman Osborn. Like they're gonna have him be like the. You know how they had the Iron Patriot armor in Iron Man 3, but they never brought it up again.
Okay, if they're gonna do Harry Osborn, how do you think they could do it?
Probably have him be like a Since
Spider-Man,
I'm trying to tell you.
Do you think? Here's what I think.
I think they'll probably make him like a new transfer student to Midtown, and then he'll be like a new friend of Peter's.
You know what they could do, alternatively, if they were okay to change it? Make him Flash's friend.
Didn't they kind of do that in the first movie in the first Raimi film with Franco?
Well, Flash wasn't a character, so.
Well, I mean, he was. I mean, he at worst
Harry was Peter's friend.
Flash was more indifferent to Flash than.
Flash was more indifferent to Flash.
No, Harry was more indifferent to Flash.
The Flash is indifferent to the Flash.
Jesus Christ. But speculation is that the U.S. government buys Stark Tower, or Oscorp does. And after Infinity War, humanity's kind of gotten wary of the Avengers, so the Thunderbolts are made. Like, and Norman Osborn comes in the Iron Patriot armor, and his already bloated ego and narcissism kind of leads him to become the Green Goblin slowly over Phase 4.
Wouldn't it be interesting if they had Harry Osborn without the Green Goblin?
Probably not, because that was
because the Green Goblin has existed in every Spider-Man movie series.
That's because he's one of the essential Spider-Man villains. He threw a woman off a bridge.
I know, but I just think that, like, within the context of this movie series, fitting him in might take a little bit of effort.
Hang on, I'm gonna pull up the post that I made on.
Well, whatever. But I'm thinking, like, they could change who the Goblin is, because they could make.
I'd actually like to see the Hobgoblin.
Yeah, they could do the Hobgoblin as someone else, or
even like Demo Goblin or Jack-o'-lantern.
The Hobgoblin is one of those characters that you could basically give to anyone.
Yeah.
So
that's because it's its entire gimmick. The actual Hobgoblin just keeps sending in decoys.
Yeah, so they could have. I think Norman is more interesting as the guy who buys out
the guy
Marvel.
Behind the scenes.
To be fair, I haven't read any of the comic runs where he's like a Lex Luthor-y kind of guy.
There's actually very few runs where he's the Lex Luthor. I mean, the closest he's gotten is Dark Reign.
But wouldn't that be so interesting if they did that? And, like, if they didn't do the Green Goblin thing and they had him be that guy? Or maybe, instead of him becoming, like, the Iron Patriot, he could have an Iron Man-esque suit that also has some elements of the Green Goblin in it.
Here, Feige, this is my post I made on Comic Vine, that, like you said, Stark Tower is being sold off. Either Oscorp gets a hold of it, or Stormin' Norman himself weasels himself in with the U.S. government to secure control for the Thunderbolts program, and use a Stark Tower's base of operations. And then following the Infinity Saga, Thunderbolts... You know people are going to die after Infinity Saga, right? Like, they're probably going to kill off Cap and Iron Man.
You know what they might do that would be really interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Disband the Avengers for a period. Bring in the Thunderbolts.
That's exactly what they did for the entirety of Phase 2.
No, the Avengers were a thing. It was just them adding a bunch of people to it.
When?
What do you mean?
Like, in Phase 2?
It's just that they never had to call in the Avengers.
Except you made this point, like, during when the president's kidnapped, where are the Avengers? You just made this point when we were sitting at a table.
Okay, that is what should have happened, but from the perspective of the people that wrote these movies, they didn't need the Avengers. I say they did, but the movie makers were like, no, they didn't. So I'm just gonna, for the sake of argument of what's going to happen, yeah. But it would be interesting. What I don't like is that every hero is the Avengers now.
Well, that was what they did in the comics back when the first Avengers movie came out. It was like a huge hit. They started making everybody an Avenger.
Is Spider-Man going to be an Avenger?
Well, I mean, he's going to be in Infinity War, so I guess that kind of counts.
Maybe he'll just be like, you might need my help on this one, and he'll use the suit briefly, and then he'll go back to his whole thing.
Yeah,
I think maybe he'll just be a guy who shows up whenever they need him to.
They've said that he'll have like 20 minutes in Infinity War Part 1.
I hope they give a good explanation for why the entire crux of the ending of Spider-Man Homecoming is getting abandoned for this.
Yeah, I did make that point when we were talking, like, that the entire ending of Spider-Man Homecoming has no meaning now that he's actually taking up the suit that Stark made him at the end of the movie.
Or do you think that the Iron Spider suit is being automatically controlled?
No, they've shown footage of D23 of Peter in the suit.
Well, yeah. Scorpion might be cool.
Prowler.
Miles Morales.
Okay, that's a little early to set him up, I think.
He might I don't think he's gonna get his own movie, but I think
anytime soon. Sony just made is making a Miles Morales animated movie.
Oh, you know what they might do? I think this is what they're planning. When Tom Holland gets too old to play Spider-Man.
Except that they're planning for him to grow up. That's why they picked him specifically.
I know, but like when his contract expires,
he has a 5-movie deal. He's not going away anytime soon.
I know, but like they imply that Miles Morales in this universe is like really young.
Well, because Donald Glover's like, I have a nephew in this part of town. I don't want him getting hurt. So that implies that he can't really take care of himself at this point.
Yeah, so whenever they don't want Tom Holland anymore, they'll just switch out to Miles Morales.
I'd actually like to see a movie where they're actually like partners, rather than Peter having to die in order for Miles to take the mantle. Just have them working together.
Well, I mean, you have to keep in context that only so many movies come out. So
I know, but like Ant-Man and the Wasp is the first time we see like official sidekicks, official heroes like having a solidified
if anything,
bond.
Spider-Man will be like an Obi-Wan character that like gives advice and then doesn't do anything. He'll be the Iron Man of the Miles Morales movie.
Fuck. When we see the Miles Morales movie, we'll feel really, really old.
We will be really, really old because we'll be dead by the time this happens.
I mean, I'm looking forward to Runaways.
When are they finally going to cancel this universe? When is this going to come to a close?
Probably when it stops making money.
I guess maybe. Is there anything else to talk about?
Not really.
Okay. So that was us rambling on about
Spider-Man Homecoming starring Tom Holland.
So since we've been talking about this for like an hour and 40 minutes, has your opinion changed on Spider-Man Homecoming?
A little.
Kind of from talking about it.
I'll give leeway to certain characters like Flash, I guess. I don't really have much preference about, but I stick to my guns about some characters.
Well, I guess that's fine. But
okay, so grade from A to F on this film.
Solid A.
Straight B.
I mean this isn't like gonna be my favorite movie, but for what as this movie is, it does a very good job of setting out for. It sets out to do a certain thing, and it does it really well. And there's only, like, one thing I don't like, which is Zendaya. But that's, like, a very small part of the movie.
Yeah, I'll give this one. I guess it works as a good foray for Spider-Man in the MCU, but I guess it felt very, very similar to Marvel Cinematic Universe origin stories in a way. And
there's no origin story here. This is just a Spider-Man movie.
Whatever. Turn it off.
Whatever. This has been the Aristocratic
and Quilsniv.
Bye. You better subscribe. Or don't. The one person who watched this. I see you. You better be clicking on that subscribe button. I know where you live.